Hey everyone, this is Jassel from Geek Public Radio bringing you your criminal fix. Tonight we are going to talk about Patty Hearst. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get all of our content.
Robbery has turned into a potentially explosive
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. Like I said, we're going to talk about Patty Hearst today, somebody that seems to be kind of forgotten about. You don't really hear a whole lot about her and about what happened, so we're gonna talk about it tonight because we think we should hear about it. So Patty Campbell Hearst was born on 4/20/1954. Nice birthday.
Nice.
She's the granddaughter to the newspaper and media giant William Randolph Hearst. So,
I didn't know that.
oh, okay, now you do. So she was kidnapped on the evening of February 4th in 1974 by a group of men and women, and they knocked on the door, and of course somebody answered, and they kind of made their way in and took her. They beat up her fiance, took her, tossed her into a trunk, and took her back to, they don't really say where. She doesn't really know where because she was blindfolded. So she's 19 years old. She's a sophomore at Berkeley at this time, studying art history, and when she gets kidnapped. Now, this group of men and women were known as the SLA, which is the Symbionese Liberation Army. And they were nothing short of a domestic terrorist group. That's how the FBI labels them even. So domestic terrorist group, they were made up of men, women, black, white, didn't matter where you came from. They had all walks of life coming in, mostly anarchists and extremists that were building this army. Because, they called themselves an army. So now their goal was to try and incite a guerrilla war against the U.S. capitalist state and destroy it. So they just wanted everything about capitalism they hated and they wanted to get rid of.
Almost like history repeats itself.
Well, and they were no joke of a group though. They were quite serious. They were very organized. They had a string of safe houses that they would bounce between so that it was hard to catch up with them. It was
So
hard
the police
to
could
follow
pinpoint
them.
where
Yeah.
the activity was coming from.
Exactly. It was a lot harder
Makes
for
sense.
them to figure out where their activity was coming from, and so forth. So they wanted to be more known. And back in the 70s, we didn't have viral videos and viral posts. You had to apparently kidnap an heiress, and that got you national news. And of course, so they started releasing audio tapes, and they were demanding that the Hearst fortune pay out to the hungry of California, the poor of California, of $70 worth of food for each needy Californian, which at that time equated to up to about $400 million. So $400 million in 1974. So they said, you pay this up, we'll release her. Well, her dad went and got a loan, but he only got $2 million worth that he sent to the Bay Area, to the food for the poor in the Bay Area. But it only ended up being $2 million, which, of course, wasn't good enough for them. Yeah, so they failed to release her. They were like, nope, or refused, I should say, and failed. But they refused to release her. And so during this time, she was kept blindfolded and kept in a closet. So she, for a long while, didn't even know who her kidnappers were. She hadn't seen them. And they would only let her out for meals. But when she was let out for meals, she would be blindfolded to eat. So she'd be put back in the closet, and eventually she was given stuff that she was allowed to read and a flashlight to read by. But it was all SLA documentation. It was all their literature and whatnot in an attempt to brainwash her. So they successfully got their national attention that they wanted by kidnapping her in the first place. And then they were like, you know what, let's turn her into our poster child. So they decided we're not going to release her, and we're going to brainwash her. We're going to break her and make her into what we want her to be. And so they what did they say? They said they wanted to take her from high society to anarchist poster child. Well, teenager, I guess. She wouldn't necessarily be a child. But much like the attention to the kidnapping, it worked. And so she was successfully brainwashed, and she started sitting in on their political conversations and pretty much taking on all of their ideologies. And later she did testify about being in the closet, and DeFreeze would tell her, you know, hey, we're either going to kill you or you're going to join us.
Now, who's DeFreeze?
DeFreeze was the founder and leader of the SLA. So he would tell her, you know, hey, you know, we're talking about it. You know, our uppers are all making decisions of what we're going to do with you. And it's, well, we're either going to kill her or she's going to join us, is what it came down to. And so she...
Join or die.
Yeah, pretty much. She decided to join, and she stated that she chose to join them to save her life, quoting, "I accommodated my thoughts to coincide with theirs to survive." Was pretty much what it was. So that's what she testified.
Sure.
Now, like I said, they gave her the choice. It's die or stay. She chose to stay. At this point, she was no longer blindfolded. She could finally see who had taken her. They put her through intensive weapons training and what her daily duties were going to be. Because they were robbing banks, and they were committing all kinds of crimes. But she was involved with several bank robberies, and she also decided at that time that they're going to release an audio tape of her saying that she's joining them, and that she's taken on the new name Tanya. Not sure why she
Not Tanya.
Not Tanya, Tanya.
Tanya.
So this was on April 3rd was when they released that audio tape, claiming that she had joined them to free the oppressed, and announced she had taken on the new name Tanya. About 2 weeks after that, she was involved with her first bank robbery.
Was she Tanya Hearst?
She's just Tanya.
Just Tanya.
Just Tanya.
Like Prince. Just
yeah.
one word. Or Cher.
Just one word. Yeah.
All right.
So just Tanya. That is the first bank robbery that they have surveillance of that.
Yep.
Bank robbery.
Huh. We should get that on the... Can we get that on the screen? All right. Heck yeah.
I mean, look at that old police uniform.
I know. Look at the footage. Like, that's insane.
For 1974, I feel like that's really good footage.
It's like super good quality.
But, I mean, it's a bank. I mean, your banks are likely to... That's her right there. They're pointing her out. And she's a tiny little thing. I mean,
There's
you can
DeFreeze.
see she's only 5'3". At the time she was taken, she only weighed 110 pounds. But it looks like here she had already lost weight.
Well, I mean, they were almost starving her in that
Pretty
cell
much.
or in that closet, I'm sure.
Yeah, they pretty much were. In her testimony, she stated that she was kept blindfolded, she was kept in a closet, she was brainwashed, she was raped and abused. Those are all things that she testified to having had happened to her while she was their captive. Captive, thank you.
No, you're fine.
So about 2 weeks after she made that audio tape and they released that audio tape was when that happened. And she was seen on surveillance, as you could see, wielding an assault weapon. And she was apparently barking orders to bystanders while providing cover for those that were there with her. Now, the Attorney General said that Hearst was a common criminal, quote, common criminal, and not a reluctant participant in the robbery. But there were photographs of that same robbery that it appeared that some SLA members were actually pointing their weapons at her, which would imply that she was not a voluntary participant. So it's kind of up in the air. You know, you don't really know. You're seeing footage that might suggest that she's being forced to be there, but maybe that's just how they were standing.
Yep.
So
assumed coercion from a certain point of view.
yes. So the work to find Hearst and stop the SLA was like this huge, major project that the FBI had all put together. Tons of people involved, investigators, police officers, undercover, all kinds of everything was involved. But as they caught on that the FBI was trying to kind of weasel in, get some information and you know, catch them, it seemed that the SLA had started frightening people into silence, and they pretty much closed ranks. They were like, okay, no one's going to know anything unless they absolutely have to, because we're not going to get caught.
Right.
I mean, smart. The less people, less information you have moving around.
When there was a fear of getting caught, when you would do things like, you know, rob banks or terrorize people.
Yeah.
There used to be a fear of getting caught. Go ahead.
So, with excellent security operations and well-organized network of safe houses, they eluded the FBI for a while. And they really had, the FBI really had their work cut out for them. So on May 16th, same year, 2 members of SLA were caught trying to steal an ammunition belt from a local store. Now, the owner of the store and one of his employees stopped them after they left, and they got into a scuffle. And during this time, well, it was a couple, Harris was their last name. But while they were in that scuffle, Hearst was in the driver's seat of the van across the street. She sees the scuffle. She empties a clip, a full magazine, into the storefront. Now, of course, the store owner and the employee duck. You know, they go for cover. And that gives the Harrises the time to get away. And when the store owner tried to fire back, she started firing closer to him. The way that I've read this on several sites, they made it sound like she was only doing it because she had to, and that she was brainwashed and trained into doing this, and that she, excuse me, my mouth is dry, but she...
they trusted her to sit in a getaway car.
Yes. They trusted her enough to sit in a getaway car. Now, at this point, what are we, 3 months in?
Right.
Now, I don't know how easily she was broken or how fast somebody that's really good at doing it can really brainwash somebody and turn them against everything that they know. But this was only 3 months later. This was May.
Well, just to add some additional commentary to that, hunger is a crazy motivator.
Oh, yeah.
And if you starve someone sufficiently, you don't really even have to do anything to break them. You just feed them every couple of days. Mm-hmm. And when you feed them, you basically offer them some kind of, like, it's a psychological manipulation. You basically offer them some praise.
I feel like they really knew what they were doing.
Be like, hey, you've been really good. We really appreciate it. Here's some food. Like, you literally just offer them kindness with food, and they start to equate your presence with
good.
With goodness, mm-hmm. And they start to equate your presence with what's the word I'm looking for? With comfort and things like that. So they're more receptive to things you say. So like, hey, we know you're probably bored. We don't have a lot lying around, but here, go ahead and just read this. It'll give you something to read.
Which was all not their literature.
Yeah, and then at that point, then they're like, hey, listen, they're
mean,
going to kill you.
You might as well read it, right? You're just sitting in a closet by yourself
right.
in the dark.
Absolutely.
I mean, now you have flashlight and you have something to keep your mind busy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
No matter what you're reading, it's something to do other than just sit in the dark and be alone.
Yep. And then, like I said, it just via starvation, you can really, really push somebody into doing some crazy stuff. That's the number one motivator of crime is financial stability. And a lot of times it's because people can't eat.
And there was 2 months, by the way, in between when they took her and when she did the first robbery. There's 2 months time roughly in there.
Yeah, see, there's a plausible chance, I suppose, I guess is a good word. There's a plausible
that
chance.
there was very successful brainwashing happening.
That is a very
Some
successful
Stockholm
brainwashing.
syndrome, maybe.
But at the same time, rich girl, never probably had real adventure before, and finds
is
out
new
she
and
likes the
exciting,
thrill,
yeah.
the shoplifting, the exhilaration of it. So there's a plausibility on the other side that she just relished in it because it's something she never got to do, and they probably let her do whatever she wanted.
Well, after this whole storefront thing, of course, the vehicle was seen. They ditched the vehicle and hijacked 2 cars and abducted the owners of the vehicles. Now, one of the gentlemen that had their car hijacked, she was in the car with him, and she apparently kept asking, hey, are you okay? She was very nice. She was personable. And he even said when he testified that he was hesitant to even report it because of how she was with him. She was just calm. She was friendly. Are you okay? You doing all right? It's so, was that her way of manipulating him?
Sure.
Or was that just her natural nature?
There are countless stories all throughout the United States history and even world history of the tiny, quiet woman who, the Black Widow, like just how incredibly manipulative that can be, because you look at them and you think helpless, you think captive, you think demure, tiny, weak, all of these things, and they use that to get what they want from you. In this case, she didn't want to get caught, so she's going to do what she has to.
Yeah. Well, so by the time they hijacked those cars and made it back to the compound, their main site, the LAPD had tracked down where that van came from, and they went and surrounded the building. Now, so because when they got there, the LAPD were there, they went on the run. They became fugitives at that point. So there was this huge shootout that happened, and sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. DeFreeze was there along with 5 others, and they got into this huge shootout with the LAPD, which ended up causing the building to catch fire, and all 6 of them died. Now, at first, they thought that Patty Hearst was in there. They thought for sure she was in there. When it was found that she wasn't, they put out a warrant for her arrest, and as well as for the Harrises, and they proceeded to elude capture by just pretty much staying on the run. They would go from safe house to safe house, here to there, and they would just stay on the move. And the FBI wasn't too far behind them, so of course they did eventually catch up in September of 1975, and it was some 19 months after she was originally taken. So at this point, she had been on the run for, 16 months? So during this time, by the way, DeFreeze is dead. Their leader's gone. So either somebody really stepped up and took lead, and she was really scared of that person as well, or she was at least a somewhat willing participant, because with DeFreeze gone, her threat of immediate death, I mean, she could run back to her very wealthy family, and they would easily be able to hide her with all kinds of expensive protection and whatnot, but she didn't do that. She stayed with them until she got caught.
Yeah.
So
it's either it's either she was brainwashed or she was a willing participant.
I mean, she could have been
And
a
look
little
at
bit
her.
of both.
And look at her. She's
just
5
a
foot.
sweet, innocent
She's
little
sweet
thing.
little
Yeah.
innocent. Look
She's-
at her. She's,
yeah, she's
5'3". She couldn't hurt anybody. Clearly, she was brainwashed.
At the time that she was captured, she was also only 87 pounds. So that's a pretty 23-pound loss. And when you're starting at 110, losing 23 pounds that's a big loss.
Well, she was also on the run, so she probably wasn't eating very well. She was constantly moving.
And they probably weren't feeding her well to begin with.
Right.
So while being booked, she listed her occupation as urban guerrilla.
Really?
Yes. And when she asked for her attorney to relay the following message, quote, "Tell everybody that I'm smiling, that I feel free and strong, and I send my greetings and love to all the brothers and sisters out there, or sisters and brothers out there. Minor dyslexia.
So, man, all right.
And we are only on this show, on this episode, we are only going to be talking about a couple drops in a very big bucket, because there is a lot that goes into her trial, and it's really twists and turns. It really does.
Oh yeah, I'd say I'm familiar with the Patty Hearst story. I knew. Okay, so at the very beginning of the show when you said she was William Randolph Hearst, and I was like, I knew that. I actually did know that.
You just forgot it.
I just completely. I don't know why it just never took or stuck, but the thing about that whole family is William Randolph Hearst actually is the one that ran the smear campaign against marijuana in the 1930s. A lot of people don't know that. He was a printing mogul. But anyways, go ahead. No, seriously, hemp was...
Do you know why?
Because hemp was poised to take the place of paper as the
Yeah,
main source
and it was
of...
gonna-
Yep.
it was gonna hurt his
to
income.
destroy... Yep, it was going to destroy the paper industry.
Right, which he had a huge...
Yeah, and he had a huge, absolutely huge stake in the paper industry.
I've watched Newsies, I know.
Yeah, there's lots of allusions to it in the pop culture. Modern pop culture talks about it a lot, and especially we're getting a little off track, but especially in the modern context with the legalization of certain recreational usage of drugs. But yeah, that's just a fun fact for you. So if you feel sorry for Patty Hearst, just remember who her grandpa is. Go ahead.
She's not at fault for him.
She comes from a good
Anyway.
stock.
Of course, when they first got booked, they were being charged, and therefore they're going through the prison psychologists and all of that. And the psychologist that she first saw described her as, quote, low IQ, low effect zombie. They referred to her as a zombie.
What a great psychologist.
I don't know I guess, like, the way that she was, apparently it was just kind of like this, like a beaten down little thing, right? Maybe she was selling it. But they tested her IQ while she was in prison, and it was 112, which of course is
Literally
average. It's the high end of average, I think.
Well, no, 90 to 110.
Is average.
90 to 1, yeah, 90, anywhere from 90 to 110 is the human average. So 112 is actually slightly above average.
Well, prior to
Very
her being
slightly.
taken, her IQ was 130, so she did have an IQ drop, which,
Well, I mean,
considering
when
everything
you start
I
to
can-
believe a certain amount of things.
yeah, I mean,
And also those tests are weirdly standardized. So
yeah, they're
lots
not
of questions that are on there.
foolproof.
Yeah, lots of questions that are on there. She was probably like, the People's Liberation Army and Syria and nope. United States is communists and duh.
Well, as with the original kidnapping and everything that happened and what she was involved with, and everything was so very sensationalized about it, because she's American elite. So
Right.
of course everybody wants to know what's happening, what's she doing, why is she doing it, all these things everybody wants to know. So of course her trial was a huge thing. And she testified that she had been brainwashed, raped, and threatened with death. And the prosecution suggested, I can't talk today, suggested that she had joined them on her own volition, like practically from the get-go, was what the prosecutor was saying. Now, despite her testimony, the jury did find her guilty. She went through several appeals processes, including the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court refused to see the case, and she lost all of her appeals. Now, especially at that time, I don't know about now, but at that time, getting off on what you did because of brainwashing as your defense was it was a big long shot. Like having that happen was next to none. So of course, there was also the speculation, though, that because of who she was, because of who her family is, that she was just going to get away with it.
Right.
So, she was sentenced to 35 years in prison, which was lowered to 7. So it was later lessened to 7. And then President Carter commuted her sentence after she had served 2 years. So she was only in prison for 2 years.
What a swell guy. What a swell
We're not done.
guy.
Because she was on probation and all that, right? And she had a record.
Right.
But on President Bill Clinton's last day in office, he completely pardoned her. She'd already been released.
I forgot about that.
And so, I mean, I'm not sure why he took one of his opportunities to pardon somebody that's been released and is now an actress and writing books. And so she's famous. I mean, she's not really,
She's not
benefiting
suffering as
from
it.
it.
Yeah, she's not.
Yeah.
She's not suffering.
It's
as a
not like
result
it's
of
holding
the-
her life back. It's not like it was. I personally don't agree with him pardoning her,
Sure.
but I mean, hey, to each their own. That's
I guess.
his
Yeah.
call. So now, of course, we can easily assume that her family and their influence, especially their political influence, had a lot to do with President Carter commuting her sentence, and then with Bill Clinton pardoning her completely. So, I mean, we could easily make that assumption. It's a pretty safe assumption I feel we could make, considering, you know, just how much they had so much influence. I just don't feel like there's no way that couldn't have played a part in something. I mean, we
it's-
see it happen all the time, and we've seen it happen since the beginning of time, that when you have a wealthy family
Not
or
about what
high-end
you know. It's
family or
about
whatever.
who you know and how much money you have.
Exactly. So, there was, of course, that she was expected to get get out of jail free card right from the get go. But of course she didn't get that. So at least she did have to do the 2 years, because even if she was brainwashed and forced into doing a lot of these things, she did still do them. And it did still cause a lot of harm. I mean, she was building explosives. She was actively robbing banks. She was petty theft, all kinds of things. And
Right.
I mean, I don't think I could honestly sit on that jury and be like, nah, she's innocent. She was just brainwashed. She's just a poor, sweet little thing.
Well, just thinking about it like this, on the past episode, talking about Dean Corll and the kids that he groomed, and they got massive sentences.
Well, their crimes were a little more.
I completely understand that, but
Big.
but my point in this is they were actually brainwashed.
Yes.
There's no question about that.
Yes. No, there's no
They
question
were
about that at all.
groomed,
From, what was it, 14?
manipulated. Yeah, from one of them was 12,
12 and then 14.
and then
yeah.
14. So from 12 years old, this child was
Completely vulnerable.
abused and manipulated and groomed into being Dean Corll's right-hand man, and he's still got, what, 35 years? No, he got like 55 years or something, some nonsense. Like, he's still in prison. But we'll put it that way. He is still in prison from the 1970s.
Yes.
So over 50 years.
Yes. And she
But-
got 2.
And she got 2.
Now, she didn't actually kill anybody. So there is that. Her like I said, her crimes were less severe versus what the boys did. So it does make sense that it would be less of a sentence, but 2 years seems just so small. And I mean, you can decide for yourself if you on her involvement. Like, was it voluntary? Was it not? Was it completely not? Was it some kind of mix in there? But I mean, she insists that it was all voluntary or all involuntary, brainwashed. That she constantly feared for her life, and that therefore she just kept going along with it.
Right.
She just went through the motions, I guess is what you could say. So there's countering information. It was all through the trial, everything that was released to the public. And so really you could pick either option and anyone could be right. Really, anyone could.
And the only person that actually knows
Is her.
is making a crap load of money off of telling people she's innocent.
Yes.
So
I
she's
mean-
definitely not going to.
You can see how she could have been very easily brainwashed.
Sure.
But at the same time, you can also see where she was just like you said, she was this sheltered, high society girl that now all of a sudden had this chance to be free and do all these fun, exciting things. So it could have very well been that as well. So while she was in prison, she did suffer a collapsed lung, which required emergency surgery. Now, that injury actually kept her from testifying against the Harrises in their trial. I find that injury a little suspicious.
That's super convenient.
Yeah. So, I mean, which that could show that she wasn't a volunteer, or it could also show that she just decided, I'm done with this and I'm just going to tell him everything and cooperate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could be one way or the other.
Sounds like the opposite of zombie to me.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was just during her psych eval
I know.
that maybe she felt defeated.
I don't know who that
so she
psychologist
was
was, but I
kinda
hope they got
melancholy.
fired.
I don't know. I didn't look into that.
Because anybody that can keep an entire nation going back and forth about one particular thing when all the evidence is laid out in front of them is probably a lot smarter than we give them credit for.
Well, I think she's smart. I mean, 112 is smart.
It's
Of an
intelligent
IQ.
for sure.
That is intelligent. Apparently, she was more intelligent beforehand. Whatever, even if she wasn't or was, 112 is still a high IQ. And it's definitely not low like the original psychologist claimed. But she bounced back. So she prefers Patricia over Patty, apparently. Which, I mean, makes sense. There are some psychologists that she saw while she was in prison, some that her lawyer had go in, some that the courts had go in, and, several different ones, of course. And so there's, as is common with trauma, she has a lot of memory lapses now from when she was Tanya, when she took on this alternate identity. So she apparently has some memory lapses in that time. But she still stands that she was abused, that she was raped, that she was brainwashed and manipulated. And whereas some people were claiming that it was DeBreeze and Wolf, which was another member, that supposedly were the ones raping her. And they tried to say, no, they were in a romantic relationship. She even keeps this little token that he gave her, which would symbolize in general that there was some kind of connection of some kind there that's positive, not negative. And so she claimed that she thought it was some kind of really significant artifact. I couldn't find out whether or not it actually was. That's all I could find out was that she thought it was some sort of artifact. And and she claims that's why she held on to it, not
Okay.
because Wolf gave it to her.
All right. So it was Wolf that gave it to not DeFreeze.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, of course, where's Patty Hearst now? So like I said, she prefers Patricia to Patty. And 2 months after she was released from prison, after her sentence was commuted, again, she was doing probation and whatnot, she married Bernard Lee Shaw, who was a policeman that was part of her security detail during her time out on bail. I like shocking you. It's fun.
Can we fire him too?
Well, no, we can't. They did have 2 children together, but he passed away in 2013.
Okay.
She has not remarried. She's remained widowed.
She stayed with him that long, I guess. So.
She did.
So authority.
Yeah. She also went on to write a memoir. It's called Every Secret Thing, and that came out in 1981. And then, of course, she also went on to become an actress, starting in, I think it was 94. She was even in Crybaby.
Yeah, I knew that.
So she became an actress. She was in several different films. And she also collaborated with Cordelia Frances Biddle on a novel. And that novel was based on the death of somebody on her grandfather's yacht. So obviously it's labeled as a novel. It's not labeled as
Nonfiction.
Yeah, it's fiction. So, who knows how much real is actually put into that nonfiction book. But she also participated in dog shows with her dogs and won a couple ribbons with one of her toy breeds. But she became very involved with a lot of fundraising and charities, including a foundation that is specifically helps children with AIDS. So even if she did voluntarily do all of these things, it does seem like she tried to do better going forward. She clearly didn't fall back into her pattern. She stayed out of the pattern when she got out of jail. She didn't go back into any criminal that we know of. I mean, unless she was like super high secret about it. But that we know of, she was not a repeat offender.
It sounds like she believed in their ideals, just not the extremism.
Maybe.
And then, instead of using violence to accomplish their goal, she settled in, wrote some novels, made some money, started doing some extra stuff, and then started working with charities. So instead of making other people pay for it, she decided to do something about it herself. That's noble enough.
Yeah.
I don't know that
mean,
it
considering-
excuses anything, but
I don't think it does. But considering that she got out and she chose a more positive path, I feel like that does speak to her character a little bit. At least the character that she developed after all of this happened, that she was just like, wow, I can't believe I did all that stuff. Oh, I heard all
I
these
sowed my
people.
wild oats and I got my
Yeah.
pardons. I'm good
Or
now.
that. Yeah. Or you know what? I sowed my wild oats and I served a little bit of time. I kind of got away with it. Let's not do that again. It was fun, but let's not do that again.
Right.
Because I don't want to go back to jail. I don't want to get another collapsed lung. She had a lot of health issues when she was in prison, but the start of it was that collapsed lung. And that's what kept her from testifying against the Harrises.
Right.
So I feel like that is a very suspicious injury, that she potentially took a very specific injury in order to make sure that she wouldn't be able to testify. That's how it looks to me. There's also some other suspicious deaths that happened around and explosions that happened around trial dates and whether or not people were getting released and whatnot. So, which actually I forgot to mention, they originally kidnapped her, and their original request was to get 2 of their men out that murdered Marcus Foster. They were in custody, and that was what they were going to trade. They were going to trade Patty Hearst for the 2 guys that were in custody that killed Marcus Foster. Well, that wasn't happening, and so that's when they started demanding the donations for food.
Gotcha.
So, sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. But all in all, she is currently 67 with a net worth of roughly $55 million.
So still not the 400 million though.
Still not the 400 million, but she wasn't the one asking for 400 million, and they were asking for that in the form of food. So,
Right.
I mean, either give it money so that we can get food or give us food. So, I mean,
Okay.
it's kind of a toss, and it's kind of a toss. You really look into all of it, and I mean,
I mean, $2
I
million
looked
would have
into
bought you some
so
farmland.
much. I mean, I knew about her, obviously, and I had an idea, but of course, as I started doing research because I wanted to talk about her, it was a thing of, oh my goodness, look at all this extra stuff. Now, there aren't the twists and turns of the pizza bomber, so there's that.
I don't think anything will ever top that.
I don't
that
think
was
anything
so
will ever
out of
top that
control.
either. I mean, hey, if you know something that might top the pizza bomber twist and turns, then yeah, definitely let us know in the comments.
that was a crazy
because
loop to
I
loop.
want to see it. I want to see something top the pizza bomber with twists and turns.
Yeah.
So help me find it.
Comment down below.
So yeah, it's like I said though, it's you look once you really look into it, because like I said, this is just a drop in the bucket of information, and once you really look into it, you can really see her side of things, and you can really see, how she could be innocent,
Sure.
or innocent enough, and then but you can also see how she definitely couldn't have been.
No, I get it. And so I got to ask then, what do you think? I have to ask
I
you.
think it's a combination.
Do you think it's a little column A,
I think
column
it's
B?
everything a little column A, column B. I think there was a little bit of excitement there that she was just like, well, I want to live, and this documentation is that bad. I bet I could help them with our ideals and wording things and whatever. I don't know. It could have been anything that was going through her mind, but I do feel like it was a little bit of column A and column B, because otherwise, I feel like when she found out Debris was dead, that she would have found a way to get away from the other people she's being a fugitive with, and she would have sought shelter with her family. That's what I would do personally. So I feel like that's what the logical thing would be to do. But of course, I mean, how much are you able to think logically when you're put in that position? So, I mean, I could sit on the outside all day long and be like, oh, well, I would do this and I would do that. But I'm not in that position. So I can't actually say for sure, but I feel like that's what I would do, is I would be like, okay, well, my family has influence. They've got money. They can protect me. I can get hauled up in a mansion somewhere and they'll never see the light of day. I'll just stay there until they forget about me and let me go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like that's because she was in California still when they got caught. They were in San Francisco. So it's not like her family was in California and she was all the way in Maine. So it's not like she was forever far away. She was still close enough. She knew how to hijack a car. She could have hijacked a car and gone to her family.
Yeah.
Or gone to even whoever she was hijacking the car, being like, please drive me away. I need to get to safety. I'm not safe. Please take me away from here.
Right.
As far away as humanly possible. And you never saw me. So protect yourself. You never saw me. So they definitely, even into her being caught and in jail, I mean, they still wanted to keep her quiet. So I could see that there might have been a even past Bree's dying, there might have been a very clear and present danger.
Really?
That was accidental.
But
I realized it as I said it.
Say, Tom Clancy'd be so happy right now.
So yeah, that's Patty Hearst for you. I mean, at least some of it. You can obviously, her book's available. You can get her book and try and see her point of view completely, because I mean, obviously her memoir is covering everything.
Right.
It's not something I have read, but I feel like I want to read it now. I didn't really think of it before, but after I've really dove into it, I went ahead and was just like, I kind of want to read that now.
So speaking of books.
Speaking of books, are we going to talk about the Black Book?
Talk about the Black Book. Can we talk about it?
We can totally
Let's
talk
about
the
the Black Book for a second. All right. So
have at it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So Rutledge Productions has a new movie coming out called The Black Book. It is a super cool anthology of different horror movies, thrillers, sci-fi, different things like that. But everything that kind of falls into the thriller/horror category. It's an incredible film. It is an incredibly engaging film.
It is.
It's a super cool thing, and you guys will love it. But if you don't want to wait for the movie, you don't have to. You can order The Black Book on Amazon right now by Topher Chambers and start reading through the stories. And essentially what you're going to be getting is the collection of stories that will be in the film. It's also on the Barnes & Noble store, so you guys can check it out there as well. So, The Black
I've seen
Book.
some clips. It was good. It was engaging, and I want to see the whole thing.
Yep. If you want to find out more information about it, go to blackbookmovie.com. You can check out all that information there. But yeah, so you want to know what I think of Patty Hearst?
I definitely want to know.
All right. So, I think when you sell yourself to an ideal, and when you put everything that you are into a thought, and to a goal, noble or otherwise, that you start to lose sight of the right thing. Everything becomes the goal. Everything becomes the ideal. And if it doesn't work towards that ideal, then it's wrong and it must be abandoned or banished or whatever. And I think in the cause, in the course pursuit of that goal, you find yourself doing some incredibly stupid things. I think in Patty Hearst's case, I think she looked at what the SLA wanted to do, which ultimately was defeat communism and capitalism, or defeat capitalism and break the back of the corporate elites and things like that. Well, Patty Hearst was a corporate elite. She got to see firsthand every single day how they lived. She got to see firsthand every single day the things that they do. And probably she got to see some of the hedonistic things that they take part in and get away with. And she got to see how society treated them above everyone else. And heck, Patricia was even a beneficiary of that, and the commute of sentence she got from Carter, and then later on the pardon that she got from Clinton. She, after all that she had done, regardless of the reasons, regardless of whatever it is, she was still the recipient of that elite status benefit.
Yes.
This is why I tell people all the time, I'm not going to use specific names. I'm not going to go into a political diatribe right now. I don't want to do that. However, I will say this. The system cares more about the color of your money than anything else and how much of it you have. But I think Patty Hearst lost herself in the idea. And I think there's a lot of people out there that find themselves lost in the idea of protection, the idea of sovereignty, all of these ideas, which could be noble ideals. But when you spend so much time trying to be right that you don't do the right thing, you're wrong. And I think Patty Hearst was wrong.
Thank you. That was well said. Thank you.
I try sometimes.
Sometimes, not all the time though.
Sometimes I have thoughts. A lot of times it's just dancing monkeys and wearing bikinis. But go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for watching with us, or watching today's episode. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, so that way you can get notifications that we have new videos out. We put out something new almost every day. I don't think we missed a day for a while. And to really get all the content, to really get into it, and to help support us, you can actually become a member on our website, geekpublicradio.com. It's only $5 a month, and you get access to live recordings of the shows. You get access to all kinds of just really cool content that you just don't have access to otherwise. And it's only $5 a month.
Yep.
So, and it's helping get, Geek Public Radio off the ground and running. So,
if you want to see us do better than some of the hacks that you see on YouTube, and you see them, I know you do.
there's so many.
If you want to see us do better than that and get bigger, like, share, subscribe, like the woman said, become a member, like the woman said.
So
Do the thing.
Yeah, you'll get the early access. You get the, all that good stuff, and it helps support everyone here at Geek Public Radio to help make sure that we keep bringing you content that you enjoy. So if you do have suggestions, if you enjoyed this, like I said, like, subscribe, comment below if you have suggestions for a future show, and we will definitely look into whatever suggestions you have. And I read any comments that are on there. So if you have any comments, I will definitely be looking for them and engaging. But thank you very much for tuning in to Geek Public Radio. This is Jassel with your Criminal Fix.